So I named my video series Laura Wants to Send because I really did want to send in the beginning. Over the last year, I made 40 plus videos of my novice climbs, and I completely failed to send more than, I think, 3 easy climbs in a year. And yet, Laura Wants to Send was a complete success. Let's talk about why. I started the Laura Wants to Send video series to try to stay engaged with my climbing while not sending. I was in an extremely negative place about my climbing when I started, feeling like my learning curve was too shallow and that I would never really get this whole climbing thing. I found every climb difficult. I got tripped up on the easiest of grades, and every route seemed to have an impassable crux that completely stalled any progress. This, I will admit, triggered some extreme climbing existential dread. I couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't belong in this climbing world. The aim of Laura Wants to Send was to force me to look for the positives. The rule was simple: learn something from every climb I get on. I thought that making these videos would make me realize that progress was happening, even if I didn't feel that it was. And I thought that if I could send things, it would make me happy, that I would feel like a real climber. So I worked hard on my technique. Sit starts in Rocklands, knee bars in Oudtshoorn, footwork in Watervalboven. I thought that if I could pay attention to my technique and learn something from every climb, that the lessons would all add up and culminate into sends. That didn't really pan out, I don't think. My progress was as fluctuating and non-existent as before when measured in terms of sends. Sending 3 easy climbs in a year with more than 60 days of outdoor climbing is not what I think one would classify as traditional success. But as the climbs started adding up, something else became obvious. Some of my most meaningful climbs ended up in falling or lowering, like Barbarossa in Turkey. The first time I worked the route, I had a pretty transcendent experience. The route was in that sweet spot where it was challenging enough for me to get completely engrossed in, just beyond my current ability, but so close that there was always hope. The view of the mountain through the hole took my breath away, a stark reminder that I was on the rock in a foreign country, climbing through a weird tunnel thing, and the lean through the hole was absurd and scary enough that you have to laugh from disbelief and relief after climbing out of it. So, of course, I had to work it and see if I could send it. On the last day of our trip, I had my send attempt, and I gave it a really good go. I passed the crux, seeing all my carefully worked out moves come into their own. I moved into the tunnel with one last move before I could rest. And then I fell. As I rested on the rope, shaked out, and got ready to climb out of that hole one last time, I realized that what I felt wasn't disappointment. I felt proud. As Honor Igna says in the Rock Warriors way, having made it up climb X, Y, or Z is not relevant. Your best climbs have given you something: growth and self-knowledge. What I ended up unpacking in my year of wanting to send is that expectation is the real crux of my climbing. I cried on climbs because I thought they should be easy based on their grade. In fact, grades did a lot of work in messing up my head. And when I entered panic zones of an all-encompassing fear of falling, it was because I was expecting it to be easy, and then when it wasn't, I panicked. So I went into Laura Wants to Send looking for progress that I just hadn't noticed and not really finding it. The fear of falling is a good example. I spent quite a lot of time this year working on falling, and I wouldn't say that I'm less scared now of falling than I was before. All I have now is a more nuanced appreciation of my fear and of what happens in my body when I'm afraid. I realize that I'm not actually afraid of falling. I mean, I'm not afraid of the feeling of falling, partly because I have such good belayers. But I'm afraid of losing control. I'm afraid of trying moves that I know will probably end in me falling, and I'm afraid of not knowing when the fall will come. I've also spent a lot of time working on skills, as this is a skill-based sport, and also not making as much progress as I would like. In the beginning of the year, this made me depressed and a little bit ashamed. Why am I so useless that a skill I learned through hard graft on one route doesn't help me out on every other route in the future? As the year progressed and I increased my understanding of skill and skill-based sports, I realized that climbing skills are contextual. They're not global. And I've been using the balm of this knowledge as an antidote to my shame. So to sum up, Laura Wants to Send did not do quite the things I thought it might. It didn't reveal some hidden progress because progress wasn't really happening in a neat linear way. It didn't make my fear of falling disappear through sheer will of positive thinking. It didn't build skills in a tidy progression that would eventually lead to sends. And it definitely didn't turn me into someone who suddenly sends everything. But what I have learned from making Laura Wants to Send videos is that attention changes the experience of climbing. By having the camera there, I could notice patterns in my thinking and my climbing, and narrating my climbing forced me to reflect. I did spot small wins, even if they aren't the type of things that might get me closer to sending. And making the videos has made me both more kind and more precise in how I evaluate myself and my climbing. In the beginning of the year, sending still mattered, even when I said it didn't. Grades shaped my emotional response, and I thought that all learning was leading me closer to a send. But after a year of trying to send, sending has actually stopped being my proof of learning. I got to see myself in a multitude of cool and nuanced ways. And it turns out I'm still a healthy, happy, enthusiastic climber, even though I sent basically nothing. I've learned so much on climbs that I haven't sent, working tiny moves or practicing falls or trying to figure out specific techniques or unlocking the secrets of a specific climb. So I feel very grateful to Laura Wants to Send, but I'm also quite grateful that I've outgrown it. It's an experiment that has run its course, and I kind of don't need that structure anymore. I still think that trying to send has important lessons to teach me, and lessons that I have not yet learned or internalized. But I am becoming less and less interested in reaching an endpoint, and more interested in how I show up along the way. Turns out I didn't need to send to be a climber.